So that's part of what we're going to be working on today with Augustine, and I'm very pleased that we'll be able to have him here today to start answering some of those questions. I know you've got questions from yesterday, and so we'll be working through those. One of the things I want to mention first, I want to thank Dolly for helping me put this together. For those of you who may not understand how Dolly fits in with the judicial branch at this point in time, the language access for new Americans through the United Way dissolved at the end of June. And the judicial branch had been working with Dolly and language access for new Americans for the 3 years, I think it was, yep. So basically we have rehired her as a consultant in the same role that she had with us as language access for new Americans, which is doing our testing, helping with our training. She's also helping us with recruitment of new interpreters. And so thank you very much, Dolly, for your efforts and putting this together. Also, right now we have moved all the information for our court interpreters onto our judicial branch website. So on that website now we have all of our exam information, the testing dates, the testing fees. So if you know anyone who's interested in court interpreting, all that information is now on our website, including Dolly's contact. She's the first contact for anyone interested in testing. So I wanted to talk also about, as we talk about attorneys who may not know or understand best practices for court interpreters, recently, I think it was just a couple weeks ago up in Ellsworth, we had a criminal arraignment for a defendant that spoke Jamaican patois. Obviously, we don't have anyone on our court roster that speaks Jamaican patois, and we didn't have anyone in Maine, in fact. So we had to look to Massachusetts, where they have one certified Jamaican patois interpreter. And so we had it through a phone relay, and the first thing that happened was the attorney, the defense attorney, was speaking with his client. The judge and the clerk left the room so that they could have a conversation together. They had the phone, the interpreter on the phone, and after about 10 minutes, the attorney asked to speak with the judge and said that the interpreter was not interpreting correctly, that they were speaking English sometimes, that he couldn't understand what was going on, and that interpreter was simply not going to work. And so the judge says, I have now 24 hours to get this defendant arraigned. I have no interpreter, what am I supposed to do? So the clerk calls me in a panic, and I say, wait a second. This interpreter has been certified by Massachusetts to speak Jamaican patois. Let me talk to the interpreter and find out what she thought the communication was between herself and the defendant. Well, I talked to her, and she said that they could understand each other fine, that it was very clear, that she explained to me that Jamaican patois is some broken English, some Creole, and so what I realized is that attorney did not understand what that language looked like. And what he thought was that the interpreter was just doing a bad job. They were just kind of making it up because they were speaking some broken English and it wasn't working. But when we smoothed that over with the judge and the clerk, and we had to educate everybody about what that language looked like and how in fact it was actually working, when we got the same interpreter back on the phone into the courtroom with the judge and the defense attorney, and everything went absolutely fine. Everything went fine. But it just goes to show you how this process can get hung up by a lack of understanding of just one language. Not even the process, just the language itself is not understood. And when we look in Ellsworth, that's a place where they don't have interpreters very often. We don't have that many LEP litigants. And so the attorneys up there are also, they just don't have the experience with it. And of course, attorneys, myself being one, we always think we know what's going on and what's right. But in fact, we all need to be educated about what this looks like. And I will say that that's on my radar screen. I'm going to try to start engaging the attorneys and educating them around this. But I have to say that my first goal is educating within the judicial branch our judges and our clerks and our marshals. And so it's really imperative that we all understand how this looks best, how this works best. And in my opinion, the way that this is going to happen best is through you. You are our court officers, and you need to model for the rest of our court system how legal interpreting works best. I'm going to train them as best I can on how this looks and how to interact with you and how the process will go most smoothly. I had a training for the clerks back in May. I have a training for the judges in October. I'm going to take every opportunity I can to give training to them and to you folks. You can make suggestions to me about what you think that should look like or what trainings you think would be helpful for you. But I really feel like we need to have our best foot forward whenever we go into that courtroom, because that's really going to set the standard. You set the standard for how this looks. And initially, my goal is to have in every courtroom for every court proceeding a legally trained interpreter. But you set the standard, so when we have interpreters that are coming from other agencies that may not be trained legally, may not have taken the exams, the court will understand and know the difference between people who understand the process and who have engaged in the legal language and who know how this looks versus those who don't. And we want to train as many people as we can. So really, I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate the work that you do to make our court system better. And what I have found that makes me very optimistic is that our judges and our clerks and our court personnel all want to understand the process. They want to understand how to best engage with you. They want to have the best level of interpreting that they can, so they can really, I know it's cliche, but so really they can access justice. So really the litigants in their courtroom can access justice. And it's very, very important to us. Augustine tells a great story, and maybe many of you have heard this, about the Spanish interpreter down in Florida who mistook the word dump truck because they didn't know the word dump truck, and it was a criminal trial in which the defendant had stolen, or allegedly stolen, city property, and he had allegedly stolen a dump truck, but the interpreter didn't know the word for dump truck. And instead of asking for a moment to look that up, they used the word toolbox instead. And so the defendant pled guilty to theft of a toolbox and received 8 years, was it, Augustine?
15.
15 years. 15 years. Theft of a toolbox is what he pled to. His family appealed, or he appealed, and on appeal, when you look back at the record, dump truck. Dump truck. So it's this, I mean, this is exactly the scenario where, you just move through the process goes quickly, you may not know a term or a word, but it is fundamental to what is happening in that process. And I think that's that kind of says it all right there. So I do want to also mention today that Genevieve Howe is our first Tier 3 interpreter. She took the National Consortium test in Michigan recently and has passed that test.
Yay!
For those of you who are Tier 2 interpreters, I am working on having the oral proficiency, the NCSC Consortium oral proficiency exam for next June. So we have to go through a train the trainer process, which I hope will happen next spring. I'm working with Vermont and Massachusetts on making that happen. But our goal is to get you to that level as soon as we can. So that is our goal. For those of you who are at the level of Tier 1, these trainings today and yesterday will count towards your Tier 2 advanced training. So for those of you who are interested in using these hours from today and yesterday, we will count those towards Tier 2, and we are going to have, unbeknownst to Augustine, another advanced training in the spring, so that you will be able to complete that for your next tier level. I do want to say that I will be giving trainings, as I've mentioned, as often as I can. I can say that the setting may not be as nice as the one we're in today. The food may not be as nice as what we're going to get today. This was all provided through a federal grant for us, through the Protective Custody and Court Improvement Program. So if our digs are not quite as nice next time, you know, I'll do what I can to get us there. But I do appreciate your being here today with us. So we have new equipment today that was also bought with the federal grant that Augustine is going to share with us. It's basically provides for remote interpreting within the courtroom and prospectively outside the courtroom as well, but we're getting there. We're going to pilot this equipment in Biddeford, Portland, and Lewiston. Some of you have looked at it already with our advanced training. It's basically just receivers and transmitters so that you are able to sit outside, so you don't have to sit next to the person that you're interpreting for anymore, so that you don't have to be head to head with them when you're interpreting. You can stand to the side, you can stand wherever you please in the courtroom. It will also help you with simultaneous interpreting. It will help you with interpreting for more than one LEP individual at the same time who speaks the same language inside the courtroom. So we're really hoping that this will bring us to another level. We'll pilot it for the next year in the 3 courthouses, and if it's successful, we have the money to do it statewide. So I'll be looking for feedback from you folks so that we can know how this is working, how it may work better in the future. So we'll work with that today, and then that should be available for you by November 1st. The way it would look is all of you need to check in with the clerks whenever you have an assignment with us. You would pick up the equipment at the courthouse from the clerk. You would be responsible for handling that equipment and then returning it at the end of the day. I also, aside from the 3 locations that we are piloting in, have an extra set so that if you're up in Bangor, if you're going to Ellsworth and you know that you may need this, you can call me and I'll give you an extra set and you can travel with it. And so what we'll do is have a sort of new process. One of the sergeants in Portland has also asked that when you have an assignment and you go to the courtroom, you tell the marshal, the security officer inside the courtroom, that you're there and who the person is, the litigant that you're looking for, and he will help you identify, he or she will help you identify who that person is so that you can get connected quickly. And many of you may do that already, but it's not, I mean, sometimes you may walk into the courtroom and not know who it is there that you're supposed to be, you know, interpreting for. So the best way to identify that person is to go straight to the marshal. They have a list. They know exactly who you're supposed to be interpreting for, and they will call out that person so that you folks can get connected and that you can get them the equipment and just know who you're going to be interpreting for. The marshal will also tell the judge that there's an interpreter there, and what the judge tries to do is push that case up on the docket so that your time is not, you're not sitting there for an extra half an hour. They really will try to push that up on the docket. So I think that's an important thing to know. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. So a few new processes, but we hope that they are going to be helpful for you. Again, if you have any questions, I am here as your resource now, for better or for worse. It's me. So if you have any questions about, you know, how the process works, or if you see things that you're questioning, or have some, you know, questions about clerks or judges or process, first of all, I want to say that you should always talk to the clerk whenever you get an assignment, so that you know who the parties are, so that you understand as much as you can of the record. As we were talking in protective custody cases yesterday, I mean, if you're not comfortable taking those cases, it's important to know that in yourself and to not take those assignments. But it's also good so that if you have facts that you may be uncomfortable with, like yesterday we heard about an 8-month-old baby with 2 black eyes and a broken leg. If you're not comfortable with that, and you can see the record ahead of time, you don't have to take the assignment. There will be someone else who can take that assignment, and I think that's important to know. And as far as conflicts of interest go, always disclose those to the clerks. You are not the decider about the conflict. I mean, you may know automatically, hey, that's my brother, I shouldn't be taking that case. But if it's questionable for you, always tell the clerk, always tell the clerk. The judge will make the decision as to whether or not he or she thinks a conflict exists. But it's not your responsibility, it's our responsibility to make that determination. So, I know we have a lot to discuss today, and I thank you very much. We are going to have a suggestion box outside for me. So, at the table outside, I don't have a formal evaluation because I'm sure you'll all just love our presentation today. But if you have suggestions for me, training, process, any thoughts that you have, things that you've seen over the years that I may not be aware of, please feel free to just leave me a note. If you'd like a contact back, I'm happy to do that with a phone call or an email. Last thought, I'm actually headed on Sunday to the National Summit for Language Access in Houston, Texas, which is put on by the National Center for State Courts. I'm headed there for 3 days, and I have been asked to present on best practices. So 7 months into the job, we'll see how that goes. But realistically, Maine is in many ways. Some ways we still have some work to do, but in many ways, Maine is really on the edge of trying to push into having our best foot forward. And other states are really recognizing that in many ways, our program is a leader for other states who do not have as advanced a program as we do. So it may feel surprising, but you're in it. We're doing it, and we are actually recognized on a national level for the work that we're doing. So thank you very much for today. I'll be here all day, so you can see me during breaks or any time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Augustine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. And you wanted to say something? Good morning, everyone. Is this microphone working?
Yes.
Because as most of you know by now, I have ADD and I cannot stand behind the podium. I would probably die if that happened. I'll try my best to stay close to your microphone, but I don't guarantee it. Well, thank you, Hannah. And that was a well-deserved round of applause, because for those of you who have been here for a while in this program, you must have noticed the very dynamic, quick, and effective change that has happened in Maine. Maine was already interested, and I remember when I first started here a few years ago, that, for instance, got judges involved in the process. I remember the first group I ever did in Maine, we had judges come and talk to us through the lunchtime, sat with us, answered questions, whatever. The Chief Justice, apparently, I think it was a Chief Justice, maybe. You remember, Dolly, was the Chief Justice, a lady? That came and talked to all of us and welcomed us or whatever. So the idea was already there. But now, I mean, it's moving at a much faster pace. So you guys are lucky because very few states have training that involves attorneys, judges, practice, mock trials, whatever. So you really, really are on the cutting edge in many respects, and that is true. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me here. And I think we're going to talk about two things real quick. I just wanted to tag along with what Hannah said at the beginning about this ethical things. We're going to talk about it, and I think on purpose we left that for the afternoon, so the attorneys sat here, so we kind of subliminally, we're going to start training them too. They don't know that, okay, so don't tell them. But we are going to train her. She was the attorney. That meant that she was right. And it took me a while to understand we have responsibilities too, and we have a code of ethics, people. And that is our backup. We have a copy of it in our folder, so I strongly recommend we read it. And apparently Genevieve did read it because she brought up part of it yesterday. So I just wanted to clarify that point a little bit more, because that portion that says that we should report something, it clearly said imminent, risk of great harm. And I think that we have to be very much aware of it. But most importantly, and I didn't have the chance to say it yesterday, so I'm going to say it today, is that the reason why an interpreter shouldn't really be considered at least a first mandatory responder or how do they call it? Reporter, is because interpreters don't work in a vacuum, people. I've always told you, you need 2 to tango, right? But you need 3 to interpret. If you are not in a threesome, and get your minds out of the gutter, I'm talking about as an interpreter event, if you're not in 3, then you're not interpreting, you're having a conversation. And the question would be, why are you having conversations with defendants, or respondents, or petitioners, or anybody? Why are you having conversations? And the reason I say that is because realistically, if a person says something, and you have to interpret it, and it happens to be something that could be potentially dangerous, illegal, whatever, and has to be reported, guess what? There is somebody there that is a mandatory reporter. It could be the attorney, it could be the social worker, it could be the judge himself, it could be a deputy, I don't know. But there's always going to be somebody else. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, do I have to say something? Because realistically, you really don't have to, because there's somebody there who has that obligation above you. That preserves your standing as an impartial conveyor of meaning, as opposed to a participant in a proceeding. You're not a party, don't become a party, right? Now, Hannah talked about the equipment. I think that's the first thing on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, so why don't we start talking about the equipment? Now, many of you, how many of you went to training with me that used this equipment? The majority of you, I would say, or many of you. All right, so at least half the group or more. How about we do this? Let's still pass them along, and I'm going to pass them along. I'm going to use, and we're going to have to be careful because the state of Maine just purchased brand new equipment, and it looks just like this one. But they have them in nice boxes, all new and shiny, and I'm going to try to keep it that way. So if you keep on passing them along, we'll try to do this as effectively as possible.
You want some help on this?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do you have a box or?
I don't have a box. That would be too easy. I have 25 myself. I'm assuming that probably should be enough.
Okay.
No, I don't. Now, if everybody has one, then we're good. If not, we're gonna get some from the state of Maine. Everybody has one? No? Now, for those of you who get these nice shiny ones in a box, please keep them that way. Don't lose track of them, because they're different. And they're different in the sense that they don't belong to me. Don't try to help me and give me the new ones, all right? It's okay. Mine are all a little tattered and battered, but that's okay. The one that I opened did have batteries. I have a bunch of batteries, so we need them. Okay, how many people, please raise your hand, how many people don't have a receiver yet? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What you have with you now is a receiver. This receiver is going to be what you would be passing to the non-English speakers. I think some people here don't have it. Okay, so if you take it out of the box or you have it in front of you, they're very simple pieces of equipment, right? Now, we asked you all to bring a headset. So if you brought your headsets, please take them out.
What if you didn't?
If you didn't, we'll rent you one. Who needs one? Batteries? There's batteries in that bag. In the black bag. Who else needs a receiver? I mean a headset? Here, $30. Osman, when are you gonna get your stuff together, okay? One day. All right. Anybody else? Okay, so what you have now is a receiver. The receivers, if you turn them on right now, you're not going to hear anything, so be patient, okay? Now, the state of Maine purchased for you these transmitters. As you can see, they're pretty much identical in size, and they look almost the same. You see it? The main difference of these transmitters, is that the button on the top is red. See that? Can everybody see that? So this is a transmitter. If you have a problem finding out if it's a transmitter or not, and you don't remember this little red button here that says talk, lucky for you, on the bottom it says transmitter. And the ones that you hold in your hands, lucky for you, say receiver. Right? So this receivers is what you would be giving the non-English speaker. This transmitter is what you would be wearing as the interpreter. All right? So when you're wearing one of these, the other nice piece of equipment that the state of Maine bought for you is this neat microphones. See how new they are? This one has never been opened. Yeah, only receivers. Everybody should have receivers, right? Everybody has receivers? Now, maybe in a moment we'll pass around some of the transmitters. We don't have as many transmitters as we have receivers for obvious reasons. All right? So, if you are the person that is the interpreter, you would connect your headset right on top, just like you would your headset. You would connect your microphone to it. And then, of course, you would turn it on. The transmitter, the receivers have a wheel on the top. Please turn that on. And that would turn on a little red light on top of it. Whoever got receivers from the state of Maine, please keep the box so we know that that goes back in the box and you keep it that way. Please don't get them mixed up, okay? Now, the transmitter has a power button that is in the front, right there. And when they turn on a specific channel. This one happens to be 2C. Now, since this is on, as I'm talking, you should be able to hear me. Now, who can hear me in your headset? Check, 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 check.
Yeah.
Check. Somebody can. Guess what? You might be on the wrong channel. Which channel are you in?
It's one.
One. So I guess if we're on channel 1, we can't hear. So what do we need to do? Change it to channel 2. So it has, each receiver has these little arrows on the front. You see them? Yeah. When you move those arrows up and down, all of a sudden you can hear me loud and clear when you go to check, check, check. Can people hear me now?
Yes.
If it's too loud, guess what? That little wheel is also a volume control. So you can turn it up or down as needed. So can everybody hear me now?
Okay.
All right. Okay, now we have a couple of people that cannot. What channel are you in?
It's the numbers are not clear.
The numbers are not working, so guess what? That might be a little older transmitter and it's not working properly. Can you hear me now, Sebastian? Okay.
I hear
This one is
You
not
do?
loud voice.
With a loud voice, that's good.
That's my eardrums.
Turn it down.
I did, and then you keep quiet altogether.
How about that?
From here.
From here, hello. All right, so can we get another receiver?
Yeah, this one, that one, this one, good.
Check, 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 check. Yeah, remember mine you might travel all over the country and they get a little battered, so they might get out of channel. All right, so Dolly's gonna help us out with the ones that need a new one.
There's no channel.
There's no channel 2.
Hold on, I got it.
You got it?
I'm listening to mine.
That's an important fact, people.
I'm sorry, I don't have it.
The person that needs the interpretation must be wearing the correct headset, connected to the correct receiver.
Sorry.
So did you find it, or are you still missing it?
I'm checking.
All right. Is everybody else able to hear me? Isn't that wonderful? That's how easy these things are to use. You connect it, so when you go to the courtroom, what you would do is you grab as many receivers as you're gonna need, you turn them on, and you look in the front, and it will tell you what channel is on. You might, she does, okay. You might also have noticed that it has a little picture of a battery. Did you see it? On the right-hand side, it has a picture of a battery. And that will tell you if the battery is charged or not. If it's not charged, then you're not going to be able to be heard properly. If it's low, what the person listening to you is going to get is mostly static. So when somebody reports, hey, I get a lot of static, that means that your battery most likely is dying. That one is dying? Well, that's 2A. This is 2C. Have I tried 2C?
2C, there was not nothing.
Check,
It doesn't matter, it's the frequency.
Check. Better? Check. Oh, yeah! So, we have discovered something else. The newer receivers.
Well, I just wanted to mention that on mine I had to
People, let's have one class at a time. Go ahead.
I had to wiggle this little plug, and you were kind of going in and out until this went in right.
Right.
Maybe because it's a little older, but that's another thing. It's the
Right.
first time
You have to make sure that the plug for the headset is all the way in. Now, those of you who have, like Kareem, that this has the same listen, those are the appropriate headsets. And that's what you're going to have when you go to court. That's what you're going to give the people who need the interpretation, that kind of headset. Some of you are wearing all kinds of headsets, including some of them that are like for iPods and whatever, and they might not be as efficient in connecting to this equipment. But now the majority of you saw that not only is there channels here, some have channels and letters. Obviously, the ideal reception is going to come from the same channel, the same letter. So the older ones that I have, some of mine, only have numbers, no letters. So if it's a 2, it's going to be receiving on 2 no matter what. But some of them are more finely tuned, and they could be 2C, 2D, 2A. So when you come into court, you get your equipment,